This meeting is recorded. I'm going to put on live on Facebook too, and hopefully the mic is not. I am a little bit here handicapped in this new space. Well, let's see how that goes. The face. It's hey Monique.
Hi. Het is gelukt.
Individualism. Go live. I'm live on Facebook. It's always a little bit weird how that goes, and you can actually hear that on Facebook because every week I say that because it's already on Facebook while it's not visible for me. Really funny as that works, but welcome you people on Facebook and you people here on Zoom. We have a whole Dutch contingency. Well, Irene is on the phone too. She probably will turn her camera any second now. Yeah. So well, there she is, right? So it's not only the Netherlands. Welcome people on Facebook. First of all, congratulations, you people who like to see, we say football, of course. In the Netherlands, the Dutch, in America, they say soccer, but what do they care about the European Championships, right? I was actually studying that. So for the people who are not into soccer, yeah, I can see that, Matthew, who are not into soccer, just bear with it for a few moments because I was so happy that we were not in the pool of that with Germany, Portugal, and Spain. But as it looks like now, we very will likely play to one of either Portugal or Germany, or so it doesn't turn out to be so good after all. But anyhow, you have to beat anyone to become a champion, regardless, right? So it's good to see you back, Hans, and we haven't seen Monique for a while either. You both look good. That could be my light, that my camera is not working really well, but you guys look good. You guys look good. It's good to have you. We had some guests, other guests that you didn't see maybe in a while. They passed by. So, but last week it was only Matthew and Matthew and me, and Irene jumped in back in as well once in a while too. She was busy yesterday. Today we're doing a little bit of a topic that I addressed back in February. So that's a while ago already. Can you believe that we already mid 2021? Officially, the summer has begun yesterday. It always starts on the 21st, right? And I don't know why I have to look it up, but every season starts on the 21st, except fall. It starts always in September 23. There is a reason for that. I used to know that. Most people who know me, I am full of useless information. That literally, I don't even know why I know all this stuff, but it's a lot of useless information that we have. Today, I want to talk about, are we really separate individuals or is there something else going on? And it's a thing, it's a bandwagon, or it's, one of my high horses that a while ago I kept talking about, we need to come more together and stuff like that. And I thought, why not? Why not do it again, right? We had a couple of interesting, I think for me at least, interesting talks about, go away from your beliefs. What is your belief system? That was pretty tough, right, Matthew? Is really where we believe and how deep that goes and how it hinders us to move forward, to really understand what we believe. And on the other side, in the last week, we had also a pretty tough one, actually. It is your emotions, your emotions and feeling. And for a moment right now, I put them all in the same bucket, but emotions and feelings are not the same, right? But your emotions and your actions, if you're, like a crazy person who, immediately, like I was, when I was angry, I used to just pick up a glass or something and throw it against a wall. In worst case, you throw it at someone else. I never did that, by the way. But that's kind of like you're a little bit like a crazy person. Is when your emotion is immediately on top of the action that you do, or your action is on top of the emotion. And I said, in a lot of cases, you have to pull them a little bit apart. Give it a little bit of time, right? Not always, right? If your house is on fire, don't do this, right? Your house on fire, run away, right? Grab your kid, If you don't like your wife, lock her behind the door and then run outside, right? So that those kind of things, right? Don't think too much about these things. Actions and emotion, and this became kind of a little bit of a powerful coaching tool that I use, because I do this to people who have been coaching with me. And so they tell me a story and they mix up actions and emotions and they think it's all the same, right? And it happens way more than you think, right? I'm talking to Hans now. Think about meetings, right? How often is it not that people, open their mouth and they get angry and stuff like that? And it's slightly different, guys, than I am one of those people. I think better when I'm talking. I think better. There's character difference between those people. I know because my dance partner is a different one. See things, and then it takes a while, and then she talks. And if I make her talk while she thinks, she get confused and maybe angry or sad or whatever, and that's when I win the conversation, right? And that's not smart, because in the end, then someone would say to me, yeah, you won the conversation, but you lost the relationship or something. Idiotic like that, right? So think about this, right? Your emotions. And then there was a scientific proof of that, by the way. Lately, I do that a little bit more, because people always say, yeah, you can say these things. Your emotions are in you, what we call our limbic. Oh, there is a psychologist coming online. Now I have to be extra careful because he really can check what I say, right? Whew. That's always a little bit scary. But anyhow, welcome, Dawn, if you can already hear us. If not, then we'll meet you in a few seconds. I hear myself. Someone has the microphone on. Anyhow, welcome, Dawn, if you can already hear us. If not, yeah, Dawn, I'm going to mute you for a moment, Dawn. But welcome. Nevertheless, it's a while ago since we have you had here, but you and I normally chat once in a while. Dawn, if you don't know Dawn, say hi to Dawn. People, you on Facebook or here on Zoom, welcome to the place. We are going to talk about individualism. I was just ranting a little bit what we did in the weeks before, and we are going to do a completely different topic than we have done over the last couple of weeks, where it was all about our inner belief and stuff like that. So I always like to start with a few
Hi.
quote. Hey Don, I have to mute you because otherwise the recording won't work, right? So I always start with a few quotes. And so, true joy results when we become aware of your connectedness with everything. And it helps if you remember that everyone is doing their best from their level of consciousness. Deepak Chopra and the whole universal consciousness created the consciousness of each of us. So sometimes we say, all these individuals, they make us a team. A team is made out of individuals. What if I would say you that it could also be the other way around? What if we have actually coming from a team, so to speak, and actually we were pulled apart and made individuals from a bigger part? Is that really a weird thought? Look around you, right? Look how a tree grows, for instance, right? It's coming out of something much bigger, earth. Need a little seed, and then this big tree comes out of it. But it actually comes from a bigger part, right? So, in specifically in the last maybe last 100 years, specifically when the stress on how important it is to develop ourselves as individuals has become very strong. We tend to forget that it might be the other way around. We think about teamwork, which sounds also really good, but that's still looking at individuals, and when we put them together, we create a team, and therefore teams can fall apart. But what if I try to change your thinking today a little bit? Could it be so that we actually came from a bigger part and has been created as individuals from that? And if you die, whatever you believe, right, then you might go to that bigger part. Some people call it heaven, other people call it paradise. I don't know what you call it. It's not that I don't care, but if you wanted to tell me what you believe, then that's okay. But scientifically, we can say that nothing actually ever, um, goes away. It just changes form, right? The Bible says ashes to ashes, dust to dust. maybe that's all there is. Maybe we just go back and become all these, particles that, are in the earth, and that's it. Who knows, right? And we like to believe that we go to heaven and it's a better place. And so this is a kind of a weird thinking, right? We fell so in love with our own selves, and at the same time, if I look at my coaching practice, a lot of people hate themselves at the same time. If I ask people randomly, do you think of yourself that you're beautiful? They start to feel very uncomfortable. No, except Hans, maybe, But, or Jean, because it's very moeilijk bescheiden te blijven. Look that up if you don't know what that means. Moeilijk bescheiden te blijven, right? It's probably in the captioning in Facebook, so that's kind of funny. But yeah, most people have a really hard time just seeing themselves, so there's always something weird with it. If it's definitely, if you look in coaching and psychology, there's a lot about accepting yourself as an individual, right? Strange as that is, while at the same time, if you look at how we talk, we say no, 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 individual is so important. Maybe it's slightly different than we think that is. I'm just giving you different thoughts, right? So we think we are all individuals, but in the end, we're all made from the same basic matter, and we will go back to it too. So if you have to do a wild guess, how much there is literally difference between me from a matter point of view or anything else that you see, you would actually be shocked how much percentage is we are exactly the same. There's only a few percentage that we are different. Well, don't look at the lamp behind me, right? But, so there is something else that makes us an individual. It's not this. It's not the matter. Although I am my body, but it is not that makes us so different. If no one knows Hans or me, and there is very hard to find, and it's like, someone is blind, right? They can maybe feel us, but if they take a sample from us, or you can hardly find any differences. Okay, you can go very deep DNA and blood type and stuff like that, but on a basic level, if you think about proteins, all that stuff, all the same stuff. We're all the same stuff, right? But we fight that for some reason, and maybe there's something good in that. Maybe it's good. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying, think about it for a moment. So it's just for a very brief moment in time and space that we exist in a different form, mainly Jean. Now, I'm 60 years old. Oh, what a shocker, right? You don't look like 60. Thank you very much. I knew that already, right? You look very young. I look 59. Okay, so, but it's actually for a very brief amount of time. I recently lost my dad, who turned 97. He was 97. Last March, he turned 97. So that's a long time in from our point of view. But if you think about the existence of the earth, it is nothing. And if you think about, the time the universe exists, and there's a lot of controversy in there too, by the way. Don't think that what we learned in school books, that's the definite answer. It is not. This is just we keep teaching our kids things that actually, are already, in big question. But so that's something else. But it's at least thousands and thousands and thousands of years old. So in that whole thing, if you take, a ruler, in Dutch, that's a lineal. If you take a ruler, and we are not even, you cannot even put your finger on the thing where we are, because that's how short we are. And in that short amount of time, we exist. And in that short amount of time, we are individuals. And if and the place has become a little bit that, right? It's kind of the search of what is all the meaning of all that we do. What is the meaning of me meeting Hans, me knowing Monique, me meeting Donna? What is the meaning of all this? And if you lose that meaning and that hope in that, you start to be, wandering off. That's how people often get depressed. And in the end, even do worse thing to themselves because there's no hope. So there must be some sort of a meaning, right? So at least that's what I like to believe. And a lot of people are saying, no, 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 we just, fly poops and away your time. It's over, it's over. Okay. But, yesterday I wrote something about, if I can personally can do my utmost best that the next person in my life, that could be my kids or the other generation, actually find the place that I found it in a better way. That would be a good individual contribution, right? If everyone would do that, and Hans, if we do this for 5 generations in a row, just exactly what I say, just a little bit better. Could be cleaner, could be prettier, which is subjective, of course. Cleaner is not so subjective, but prettier is subjective. But anything of that, just that simple. Not doesn't have to be big, right? Just cleaner. Just you walk in a room, you see a piece of paper, maybe you see 20 pieces of paper, but you pick that one piece of paper off the floor and throw it out. That's simple. If we would do all that our whole life, if we do that with trash that we see on the street, you know, some people think that I'm crazy, when I pick trash off the street. I'm a little bit more careful with COVID and stuff like that, but I do. I just run and I get. If you see my bike, Hans is not nearly as fancy as your bike. I don't know, guys. Don't feel insulted. When Hans is online, I have the kind of the feeling that I always talk to him. That's the reason why he can't not stand all that attention, and so he stayed away for a few weeks. It's too much attention. But if you know my bike, there's a little basket on front. Yeah, it's a little bit goofy. It's like Forrest Gump. I'm sorry, but if you see typically me biking, and then at the end of the biking trip, you often see there's empty bottles in there and stuff like that I bring to. It's really dumb. That's why I never make good miles, because I have to stop, because at least I feel I have to pick up one empty plastic bottle on the trip that I make. Just one. Maybe when I take, a small breather or something like that. That's what I mean when we say, can we leave the place that we found just a little bit better, than when we found it? Is that too much to ask? I don't think it's too much to ask, right? As to yeah, I'm Forrest Gump, not Forrest Gump. No, I'm not saying that I'm better. I'm just giving you practical examples. If we say, how can we improve the world, and what is the meaning of life in then we look for something super big, where it could be something super small, like just picking up that plastic bottle. Now, it would also be better if that person who left the plastic bottle behind would not leave that plastic bottle behind in the first place. I do understand that, right? And this because of people don't think that way, that they think, oh, there are Forrest Gumps and Sean Gumps in the world, so therefore we can keep throwing those plastic bottles away, right? So, but okay, I can only change myself. I didn't even know that person who left that plastic bottle behind, and maybe it happened accidentally. Who knows, right? Who knows? So we are just a very blip in the big timeline, and but can we then make an impact? No, I mean, I don't know. When I'm dead, you know, they might say, you might remember. Some people might remember, but 2 generations from now, you're long forgotten. I don't have any illusions on that, unless I invented something like I cured, I don't know what. Right? What is there that we can cure? Unless you have that big of a names like Tesla or someone, Alpha Edison, or Louis Pasteur, Mother Teresa, Hans Blau. Unless you have one of those big names, then it doesn't mean anything. Seriously, I mean, I don't make any illusions in there. So physics, this is physics, right? What I'm doing right now, it's all matter, right? We can all explain that. Nowadays, we're very far in explaining the structure of almost anything. We can now even explain, a planet or or a star that we don't even see, but we can only hear it through radio, and we can actually calculate the mass of it, and if it's maybe a planet or a star that is mostly constructed out of gas, and how much gas and what kind of. It's amazing how far we have come, that you know bodies, that those are bodies, right? Planets and stars and whatever, and moons, and then light years away, we can actually already say what matter they are constructed of. We cannot say what's on it. But we can do that. This is pretty amazing, right? If you think about it. But the one thing we cannot put our finger on is consciousness. We cannot define it. We know it must be somewhere because I'm talking to you, and I process some sort of thoughts that doesn't make maybe any sense for any one of you, but there is some sort of a consciousness, right? And consciousness of human beings. I know there are animal lovers online always. Sorry about that, but for me, I love dogs, but a dog is a dog. And it recognizes you, but trust me, give me your dog for a week and it will love me. Because I feed it and I'm good for it. And a dog gives you the loyalty of the people who feed the dog. That's just how it is. So yeah, there is a little form of consciousness in there, but it's super small. It's super small. The consciousness of a human being is super big, right? At least so far as we know. That's because we are the only, beings that we have met so far with this big of a consciousness, right? So if everything comes from something, consciousness must have come from something too. If everything returns to matter and everything comes from matter, we can prove that easily, You need maybe a seed from a tree to make a tree, but all the rest of that tree, the seed was like this small, right? It's the same blip as on that ruler that I showed you. And it looks like I'm having a kids program here, but I'm trying to make it understandable for me, not for you, because this is how I understand the universe. Then this gigantic oak tree comes, that all that matter is gathered mostly from the earth, and that it comes and it had out of the air. Does that make sense? So it made itself out of matter that was already there. It had a different form. It was earth. It was just so it grows. It knows how to grow for some reason. We'll do another thing on that topic, why it knows how to grow. Because there's some sort of a consciousness in there too, strange as that is. You can plant 1,000, you can plant 1,000,000 oak seeds. It will never, never, ever become a maple. You can try it. You can make it read a book of maple. Maybe you can even let it talk maple, but it will never become a maple. It will always be an oak tree, you know? That's weird, right? So, and that's what a human being too. We can do whatever we want. We will always be a human being, unless you're a fervent believer of what we call evolution theory. Now we evolve a little bit, but our basic substance is still the same from thousands of years ago. Human beings, right? So when I pose the question, so is it thinkable or is it unthinkable, that is for you to answer, that we might get our consciousness all from the same source? Some people get very uncomfortable because it attacks their individualism. That's what we were talking about, right? Now, if a tree would have consciousness, right, it would be always okay if it's in a forest. There are a few trees who are individuals and they, live on the field, but most trees are really comfortable when they are in a forest. And most people actually, they start to try to find themselves and start to live in groups. People are not made as individuals. Yeah, there are a few people, of course, who like to be more a loner, right? But the true loners, you probably never hear of them. The loners that constantly say to you how much loner they are not so much of a loner at all. Otherwise, they wouldn't keep talking to you that you're a loner. It's like people who announce up front that they don't want to be anymore on Facebook. What's the point? If you don't want to be on Facebook, turn it off. But for some reason, they want to let us know that they don't want to be on Facebook anymore. Does that make sense? That doesn't make sense at all. So there are very few real loners, and the real loners we probably don't even know, right? Because otherwise they would not be loners. Does that make sense? Individual. So in the end, I'm also a little bit of a romantic person. We are all built out of stardust, and that sounds like a movie, but it is actually science. We are all built of stardust. In each and every one of us, we can find a little bit of stardust in us. Seriously true, right? Seriously true. So as humans and our galaxy have about 97% of the same atoms. Isn't that anything that you found? That's what I said. If it comes to an atomic level, which is something most of us understand by now, if I would have this talk about 100 years ago, no one would understand what I would say. But everyone now kind of has a basic understanding of physics. Which do you know that 97% of atomics are the same in anything you meet? But still, we have that need to be an individual. So sometimes the answer of the bigger question is maybe right in front of us, right? And I'm not saying that I have it, by the way. I'm not saying that I have it. I'm just giving you ideas that maybe we already have the clue of why we are here and it's right in front of us, right? Everything is the same, but it expresses itself in an individual form, and we don't know exactly why that is, but that's the beauty of us, right? If we go to a theater, we like it that the individuals on stage express themselves in an individual way. Even if you go to a really big group performance, there's always a solo artist. And the solo artist looks more solo because the rest is pretty homogene, right? If we do science, we always look at the homogeneity. Is that good English? No, I don't think it is. But we look at the commonalities of the bigger group. And so Deepak Chopra said once, and he's an endocrinologist, he said, we spend not enough time to look at the individual expressions of, for instance, a disease of healing, right? We always look at the bigger thing. So we are hugely in conflict as human beings, right? European soccer is going on, right? We all like to be Dutch now. If you know a little bit about soccer, that's when nations come together in Europe. They hate each other. We don't even like our neighbors, But when it's soccer time, everyone wearing orange, and we like to come together. So Don, maybe I need to invite you once to talk to that topic. So what is that conflicting need that we have, of being an individual and at the same time belong, right? And those are two human needs that we both need to fulfill. And I've been talking to that before. We have the human need to belong, while at the same time we have the human need to express ourselves as individuals. And if you don't meet any of those two, something or either of those two, something typically goes wrong with people. So yes, our individual is important, but our belonging is important too. And here I come almost to actually a very simple equation, right? What if our individual, is just in service of the belonging to the bigger group? What if our individual expression can always add something to the group as a whole? Does that make sense? Because anything that we destruct, we don't only destruct ourselves, but we also, affect the rest around us. And then we come back to what I've been saying since probably November last year when I was starting to talk about it. There are 4 levels of consciousness, if you remember that, right? There is the me consciousness, that's Shah, you know, that's me. I start to, when I was born back in 19 something. I think it was 1990 or something. I forgot where it was. Or maybe 1980. Or maybe even before that. I don't know what it was, right? But it's this moment that that as consciousness comes in, there's this moment that you understand that you have hands and then it's a time when you start to talk, and I do it now a little bit on purpose, when infants, they start to talk with their own name first, right? He said, "Oh, Jean is talking now on Zoom, or Jean is talking now on." That would be really weird if I would do that the whole time, right? But that's when you can see that the kids, that a child becomes aware of the me. It becomes me, yeah. And at some point in time in that early development of kids, the me is the only thing there is. They need to eat, they need to poop, and they think everything happens by themselves, right? They walk into their room and suddenly the light goes on. A kid at that age that not has any idea that someone actually flipped that light on. And when it cries, suddenly food appears in front of their face. And they don't care where it's coming from. They just know I make a sound and I get food, right? I make another sound and my diaper gets changed, right? It's very strong me consciousness, right? And then we grow up, and then our parents typically, if you don't grow up in a too disruptive family, a dysfunctional family, then you start to hear things that we need to do things together as a family, and you need to do your own contribution in the family. And if you think about, I know some of us here have teenagers or had teenagers, the resistance of kids to just clean up their own room or just do simple small chorus work is go, why do I have to do it? And what do we say as parents? Okay. And when did I give you food? It's not my food. I didn't have to do that either, right? Because we skip the whole process of that a kid has to go through that. But as parents, we just, we start to argue about it, If I would only pick up my own stuff, I pick up your whole stuff, you can also pick up the shoes of your sister. Oh, that is a big no-no, right? So you mom, dad, you mean that I don't only have to clean up my own stuff, but I also have to clean up my sister's stuff? That's a big no-no, right? So it takes a while before a simple we consciousness comes in the people's mind. Does that make sense? But the scary part is, it's still an individual, my son, my daughter, who choose to can do that. And so we actually need to maintain both things. If we only maintain the me, my son, sorry, Naveen, or she, my daughter, TS, would never do something for someone else, right? But if I sacrifice it too much, you can see that in some parents, is that they believe that their life to raise their kids is about sacrificing themselves for the other. And it's when they lose themselves in it. So me is important. Don't lose never your me. You add your we to it. You start to see first your role in your family, and later on you start to see your role maybe in the soccer team or in the school team, and so on and so on and so on. And the bigger the circle is, the bigger you we can be. And I use this just to be a little bit of more we in the universe by doing Facebook. Does anyone get that me and we? Right? But if I take myself out of that equation, that whole construct of we collapse completely, because it's not my we anymore. It's always me in the we that makes it worthwhile. Does that make sense? And therefore, I always have to contribute to it. Now, so far, if I do workshop on this, people are still with me. Yeah, they understand that. And it comes to nations, when the we stops at the border of a country, and that causes wars, because then the we stops right there at the border of my house, or at the, when I need to lock the car, and we need to lock the car because we don't trust the other groups of the we, you know, which is basically just a small evolvement of me. Does that make sense? I do that on purpose. But if you keep thinking too much about me, you will never truly become a we. Does that make sense? Right? Because it stops, and you have to look around the world, and you know that what I'm saying is absolutely true. Otherwise, there won't be these wars and fights, and there are more rich people than poor people, or there are more poor people than rich people, if you think about it. But of course, there is a huge, difference and inequality if it comes to wealth in this world, right? And it doesn't mean I'm okay if you're wealthy, by the way, right? There's nothing wrong with that at all. It's what we do with the wealth. That's what's wrong with this. But we keep thinking about we. This huge need to feel safe and build walls and have weapons is all coming from a too small we. Does that make sense? Comes from a too small we. And here comes the biggest step. So we have a me consciousness, we have a we consciousness, but we also have an earth consciousness. There are only a very few people who can truly tap their whole life into earth consciousness. And I must honestly admit, I'm not even sure if I'm fully there. I know about it now. I'm aware of it. I'm not sure if I am the whole day busy with making my earth, where I live, a better place. I don't know. I really don't know. I can't do that, right? But at least that consciousness is rising, right? When you grew up, and I've heard that, of course, from my older siblings, when we're singing, this is the story of the age of Aquarius, the age and hair, that was when we're singing about the coming of that everyone would have that earth consciousness. That finally, so yes, I grew up in the in the generation of the hippies, but I never was one. I actually thought the hippies were complete idiots. And they had a VW, Volkswagen little van, and they painted, sunflowers on them. And I thought, what you should do is build a career, work for your money, you know, don't sing about all this crap. It was a little bit against my own nature for reasons that I maybe talk about later. But if you really think about it, these hippies were not so wrong in their thinking. Okay, they used a lot of drugs and, had a lot of promiscuity in there and stuff like that. But that's something else, But think about the bigger picture they had. The age of Aquarius is, we all live on this earth and we have to manage it all together, right? So not such a bad thought if you think about it, right? And if you think about older cultures, when we were thinking about tribes and stuff like that, the thinking is really old. That thinking is not new. Individualism is new. That's new. That's where it goes a little bit wrong. Earth consciousness, right? And where I started today, that 97% of our molecules are kind of the same, and I'm sure there are always scientists online who say, no, Jean, it's not entirely true. And it goes a little bit about what I'm talking about is, but maybe there's a collective awareness. We don't know where awareness is coming from, but if matter is almost all the same in the world, can it be, is it to conceive that consciousness actually in a bigger form is also the same? We only think that it is different. Is that conceivable? That is my question. And it's a really hard philosophical question, right? Because as a person, and I do everything, there's people, they say, I express myself in an individual way, and therefore I buy, like 100 million other people, Dolce & Gabbana. Because I express myself so well. No, Dolce & Gabbana make a brand and they make you believe that's the way how you can express yourself individually. There are so very few people who literally individual. Hans is a biker. Where do you look for brands? Brands that are known. Okay, your paint is maybe slightly different, but you try to be an individual within the group of the we. Does that make sense? If you go to TT and Assen with your bike, you look like an idiot. TT and Assen is where the motorcycles are run, right? And he goes with his bike. So we are only, it's same thing with I'm a ballroom dancer, right? With my Latin clothes. I try to make myself individual in the Latin world. Truly do. But for all the people that are not coming from the Latin world, trust me, they all think that we're all idiots with our stones and rhinestones on our in our hair and on our high heels. It's true everywhere. We only think that we are individuals within our own group. From a larger point of view, so if we ever would be invaded by aliens from Mars, we are not individuals at all. We all look the same. And it's not so bad. It is the expression that you do. But what you need to think about is that short amount of time that I have here, can that expression contribute? Can I as an individual contribute to the whole? And when you understand that concept, that's when you can talk about, what we called the universe consciousness. So you had me consciousness, you had we consciousness, you had earth consciousness, that's just the little globe, the round thing that we live on. And then you had the universe consciousness. And in episode 126 of Tell, the Everyday Life podcast, I promised that I would come back on explaining what the universe consciousness means. And the universe consciousness comes back to when you see that, yes, as an individual, the me, if I put my me in service of the bigger things that could start with just the we, which is great, right? But it could also be thinking about how do we leave what we found back in a better way. Do you know that in less than 200 years, we suck this globe dry, literally. We take all the oil that you can find in it dry. Calculations say we cannot do it for the same time. Just think about it for a moment. From the moment that we started to use oil, till now, we cannot use it for the same length of time again. It just won't be there. That can never be the right solution. There's a lesson in there. Does that make sense? And if we think that only the scientists can solve it, then we're hugely mistaken, because then we are exactly not doing what I said in the beginning. We want to be individuals. We want to take responsibilities. But when we talk to each other about a little bit bigger responsibility than are we give up. Because we don't know the answers, and I don't know the answers either. But we can only know the answers if we start talking to each other about it. How can I contribute? I must say, and Hans, just now I'm going to stop it. But I have seen such a tremendous change in my good friend Hans. It's just a tremendous change. He probably was always a good person, but he's so vocal about put your life in service of someone else. It's just beautiful to watch. And he does it on his way. I personally was affected by in some of the ways that he does, but that's personal. That's between him and me. But he did, and I'm sure he found other way. And Matthew is doing that maybe too. Don is maybe doing that too, and Monique is doing that too. And often we do it through a profession. Like Don, I know you help a lot of people through a profession, but we need to do it through our life, not only through our profession. Right? Does that make sense? That's what we need to do. All right, I'm climbing down from my ivory tower and my high horse and all that kind of stuff. No, I just felt very inspired to say these things lately. I don't know why that's coming from. But someone said to me, I need to keep doing it. So I keep doing it. Anyhow, there was that people on Facebook. Irene, you were jumping in and out. I'm not sure if you're still listening. Is there any people on Facebook that are sending us questions? No questions. The important is individualism. See, that's kind of a provocative quote. Anyhow, the importance is not individualism. Yes, the importance is individualism if we put it in service of others. Make yourself so strong that you actually can, mean something for someone else. That's basically what it is, right? So there are no questions for you on Facebook. If you want to join us here on Zoom, just send me or Irene a message and we'll, hook you right up. And if not, then, if you are on Zoom with me, stay with me for, the after party. But if you're only on Facebook or somewhere else, then you see that maybe, as a recording, then I'll hope to see you next week again with the place or listen to one of my podcasts. I have not been active for the last 2 weeks of my podcast of Tell for personal reasons, but I will be back very soon with 2 or 3 episodes. And we have some awesome interviews lined up. So we'll see you back there on Tell, the Everyday Life lesson. And if not, then I'll see you back here on the place every Tuesday, 12 o'clock Dallas time, which is somewhere 7 o'clock in the evening, the Netherlands time, and all the other time zones, you have to figure it out yourself. All right, I'm closing this off.